Hey, how's it going, everybody? Charlie Wilson here, aka Sinister Charlie. Welcome back. Hi. So we've got a different kind of video. Conscription. What's that all about? Well, it's when the government comes along and takes away your rights. And so I feel like World War III might be coming up soon. I don't know. I just know I'm 40 years old. I was in the military, so I would assume I'm on the bottom of the list to get conscripted. They generally want really young people who don't know what the hell's going on. But all of our really young people in the United States are out of shape. And yeah, probably wouldn't be good conscripts anyway. So I don't know how that's going to work. Lucky for you, there's about 300,000 active duty military members in the United States military. So, they say recruitment's down, but honestly, I think we're like the third largest military by numbers. That seemed like a fun video to watch. So this is Simple History, by the way. I'll put the link in the description. You guys can go sub to them. And please like and subscribe to my channel as well. Let's go.
How conscription will work.
Sorry to pause this. Wow, that was a record. Sorry to pause it so quick, but this guy's voiceover is really good. And I'm also looking for voice acting work if anybody is interested in some deep voice stuff. And I'm willing to do it for free. So if you need somebody.
Conscription, in one form or another, has been utilized by nations to fill the ranks of their armed forces since way back in history. And though only controversial, is a practice that continues to this very day. In the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia, both sides have utilized conscription to bolster their number.
Yeah, I figured they were going to bring this up, but if you've seen those videos, they're pretty scary. They just take you off the streets and stuff. It's pretty insane. Yeah.
In Ukraine, laws were enacted to require all men aged 18 through 60 to register for conscription, though only those aged 27 to 60 were initially liable to be called up for service. In the face of recent losses, this age was lowered to 25 in early 2024. Really? Women with medical training are also required to register, though there's no requirement to serve. But everyone with medical qualifications can expect to be called up to serve in a national emergency. On the opposing side, Russia has also resorted to conscription. In a law that went into effect on January 1st, 2024, all Russian men aged 18 to 30 are required to serve for a year in Russia's armed forces, an increase from the original age limit of 27.
And honestly, that's like a lot of militaries around the world. We're lucky in the United States that it's an all-volunteer military. And the fact that it is an all-volunteer military, you get a lot of people who actually want to be there. I know South Korea, it's like 2 years service, mandatory, which is a reason why their government didn't get, I don't know if you saw the thing recently in South Korea with the, they impeached the South Korean president because he was trying to call martial law. So it's good that a lot of people actually were, military trained, so they knew they knew what the military was going to do. So that's a good thing about conscription, but
As of July 2024, about 150,000 men have been drafted in this way. According to Russian law, these men are not to be sent outside of Russia, therefore freeing up other professional units for frontline service. Though there were some that were sent to Ukraine, allegedly by mistake.
Allegedly.
There are other reported violations of this policy, but these are difficult to confirm or debunk. These policies are controversial, to say the least, with both sides seeing a large exodus of men of military age leaving their countries. In Ukraine, a recent poll revealed that draft dodging was acceptable according to 46% of the respondents, and a quarter were unsure. In Russia, it's a felony to leave the country after being summoned for service. In spite of the unpopularity of the practice, both sides will no doubt continue to rely on conscription to fill their ranks until the end of the conflict. As mentioned earlier, conscription is nothing new, with forms of it originating back to ancient times, and it's been used for millennia by virtually every major world power ever since. During the First and Second World Wars, participating countries experienced severe numbers of casualties among their servicemen, which forced them to implement strict measures to fill their ranks. When there were not enough men willing to serve voluntarily, they resorted to conscription. conscription. After the world wars were over, the desperate need for soldiers was gone, though many nations still turned to compulsory military service, and the lingering fear of the draft hangs over the heads of many to this day. Nations around the planet still require their citizens, usually men, to perform military service, whether they wish to or not. Around 85 countries have some form of compulsory service. In some cases, it's a response to the ever-looming threat of war, such as in South Korea.
There you go.
Requires all able-bodied men aged 18 to 36 to undergo military training as a defense against their northern neighbor. For other nations, it's a matter of national security. Even
with South Korea, it does make sense. Just when you've got that crazy guy up there. He's doing crazy things. He's making crazy decisions. Yeah, you would assume that. And a lot of South Koreans actually want to serve anyway. So, yeah, it's good. It's good for them.
Even when there's no specific threat, Switzerland has conscripted its male population since 1848 and continues to do so today, though they've not actually participated in a war in centuries. Surprisingly, this is actually a popular policy and a major source of Swiss pride and national identity. In 2013, a referendum to eliminate compulsory service failed with over 73% of the population in favor of keeping the system. After the Second World War, the United Kingdom continued the practice of conscription in order to ensure enough manpower for their military, which was needed in places like occupied Germany, the Middle East, and India. In 1947, Parliament passed the National Service Act. This required all physically able men between the ages of 17 and 21 to serve in the military for 18 months, though this could be deferred by university students and apprentices. After this service, they would be placed in the reserves for 4 years. In total, around 2 million men were conscripted this way until the new law was repealed in 1960, though those with deferments still had to serve. The last national servicemen were discharged in 1963. Training lasted for 6 weeks, with emphasis placed on training the men as quickly as possible. Accommodations could vary, but were generally of a lower standard, and the pay for the conscripts was a fraction of what the average British man would earn in the era. For the most part, after training, these men were sent to garrisons around the world. These could be relatively peaceful sectors, such as Germany, but could also be in active war zones, such as Cyprus, the Malayan Emergency, and the Suez Canal crisis. In 1950, the North Koreans launched an invasion of their southern neighbors, and British troops were part of the UN force sent to intervene. As a result of Britain's involvement in the Korean War, the length of service was extended from 18 months to 2 years. In total, 395 British national servicemen were killed in action in various war zones throughout the world from 1947 to 1963, and many more injured. After the Second World War, the United States also maintained a system of conscription, commonly called the draft. The Selective Training and Service Act, which conscripted millions of men during the Second World War, was set to expire in 1947, though Congress, at the urging of Harry Truman, renewed the law in 1948. This was a temporary measure which would expire in 1950, though this was postponed due to the outbreak of the Korean War. 1.5 million men were drafted to fight in the conflict, with another 1.5 million sent to serve in occupation duties in Europe and Asia between 1954 and 1961.
I didn't know that many people were drafted into the, or that many people fought in the Korean War. That's pretty nuts.
One of these men was perhaps the most famous entertainer in the world at the time, Elvis Presley, who served between 1958 and 1960, and was part of the 3rd Armored Division in West Germany. With their increasing involvement in Vietnam, the U.S. once again called upon the Selective Service System to ensure they had enough manpower to fight in the conflict. In an attempt to maintain some degree of equality, a lottery would be held, in which birth dates and numbers would be chosen at random, in full view of government officials, observers, and the media to ensure transparency. If a man's number was called, he would be drafted into the armed forces. There were some deferments due to status, such as being a university student, medical issues, or a family situation. Though it was as fair as possible, since the numbers were assigned by random chance, the draft was deeply unpopular, and anti-draft protests were the cornerstone of the ever-growing anti-war movement that gripped the nation as the war dragged on. By the end of America's involvement in the conflict, 17,671 draftees had been killed in the conflict, about 30% of the total number of losses. The draft was so unpopular and had such an effect on public consciousness that, in spite of the numerous conflicts the U.S. had engaged in since Vietnam, These were all fought by volunteers. In spite of maintaining an all-volunteer force, the U.S. still maintains the selective service system, requiring all men aged 18 to 26 to register for a draft should the need arise. Though compulsory military service has been implemented in some form or another since ancient times, its practicality is hotly debated. Those in favor of conscription believe that it not only provides necessary manpower in times of national emergency, but also fosters a sense of patriotism, duty, and purpose for those called up, and instills much-needed discipline into a person's life. It's believed that the lessons learned in the military will carry over to civilian life, improving the long-term prospects of both the conscript and the nation as a whole. Well,
yeah, I would say a lot of stuff has stuck with me since, getting out of the military. Yes, it's a little difficult to say. I mean, I'm willing to put up with more bullshit. For like if I had, with normal jobs, I'm willing to put up with more. Just and being yelled at really doesn't affect me anymore. I guess I don't know, stuff like that. Just you're willing to put up with more stuff. That's what I've taken from it.
After service ends. For those opposed, there's an argument that it is immoral to force someone to serve against their will, compelling them to risk their lives as well as grievous bodily harm and psychological trauma for a cause they do not
I think that guy needs
in.
to get off the battlefield.
There's also a practical concern. Those who are forced to fight against their will are obviously unmotivated and not committed to the cause. Their mindset, a potential liability in a combat zone. No one wants to share a foxhole with someone who is only there under duress.
True that.
In the words of a Ukrainian soldier in the recent conflict, quote, "We still want people to join voluntarily because there's a big difference between someone who was drafted into the army and someone who went to defend their homeland. The desire to fight the enemy is very important, in addition to training, equipment, and preparedness," end quote. Draftees throughout history have served with distinction and bravery, and some have gone above and beyond the call of duty. In spite of this, calling up the unwilling to serve is a controversial practice. In the current unstable geopolitical climate, there are fears that wide-scale
What are you talking about? The world's great. It's pretty bad.
conflicts can break out, forcing nations to resort to conscription of their citizens. Whether this is an unfounded fear or a potential reality, what is certain is that fears of the draft will loom large in the minds of many around the world.
Are these the Sims? There you go. I'd say you don't need the draft, honestly. In a country this big, like America, in a country of 350 million people, and honestly, the benefits that they offer you for the military, I mean, it's what, free college? Yeah. I mean, there are some benefits to it. Honestly, the best lesson I was ever told about the Navy was use the Navy, don't let the Navy use you. Make sure you're doing like a lot of training and doing college courses while you're in the military, stuff like that. Get certificates for different job training, and just use the Navy. Don't let it use you is basically what I would say. Anyway, there you go. Broncos, good job. You're about to lose to the Bills, but at least you made the playoffs after 10 years. So go Broncos. And thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe down below. Makes me feel real good inside, helps out the channel. And if you have any recommendations for any other videos, please put them down in the comments. I will get to those eventually. So thank you very much for watching, and bye.